So now I want to continue with the implementation of the greetings generator using RxSwift. And therefore, I already imported the RxSwift framework up here that gives me the basic primitives that I need when using the framework. And then I also imported RxCocoa, and RxCocoa actually contains a number of helpful extensions on classes from the Apple frameworks. So for example, classes from UIKit or Foundation will be extended, and the extensions live inside the RxCocoa framework. And the first extension that lives inside RxCocoa that I'm going to use is the one on text field. And in particular, I'm going to show you the basic idea of an observable by means of this text field here. So I'm using the text field to create a new observable. So it's going to be the name observable, and it's going to be of type observable and generically typed to optional string, because that is the type of the text property of a text field. This is going to be the value that the type of the value that the observable emits once I start observing the values inside of it. So the way how I can obtain this observable is simply by using the reactive extensions that are defined inside RxCocoa. So I'm using the .rx property, and then I want to get the observable for the text property, and finally I have to convert it to an observable using the asObservable function, and that's all I need to do in order to get my first observable. All right, so what can I do with this observable now? Why does it help me, or how does it help me? So in general, there is basically one thing that you can do with an observable, and everything else that you're doing with observables are just variations to this one thing. And what you can do is you can subscribe to it. And subscribing means that you basically provide a function that is doing something when the observable emits a new event. And this function is called an observer. So I'm just going to call the subscribe method on the observable here, and then I need to provide the observer. And as I said before, this is a function, so it's a closure. And actually, I'm going to type this out completely here rather than using the trailing closure syntax. And what this closure takes as an argument is something of type event. So it's an event, and it is of type event, and that event carries or potentially carries an optional string which corresponds to the same type of the observable that I'm using. So the reason why I have to specify the optional string inside the event here is because name observable to which I'm subscribing is of type observable optional string, so it emits events of type optional string, so we potentially get optional string values from this observable. All right, so what do we have to do next? What can we do next? Actually, I think I have to remove the argument label here. Now we can inspect this event and see what's in there. And actually, an event is implemented as a very simple enum. So that should look very familiar to you. It's an enum that has 3 cases. Let's check the simplest case, which is called completed. And this event is just emitted when there are no more things for this observable to emit anymore, so it'll just emit the completed event to tell its subscribers that it's done with whatever it was doing before. Then an event also can contain an error, so if anything goes wrong, while the observable is emitting values, then it can submit or emit an error event. It's going to carry an error, so here we're using enums with associated values. This case, the error case, will contain a description of what went wrong using this associated value or this associated value of type error here. And then the most interesting point case for now is the next case, which carries an element. And you see that event, the whole enum, is generic to the type element. So let's actually investigate again what we have inside our view controller class here. We've got an event that is generic to the type optional string. So this means that the next events always carry values of type optional string. So now, usually when we have an enum, we're using switch statements to inspect the contents of the enum, and we're going to do exactly this right here as well. So we're switching on the event and taking care of the three cases that we just saw before. So first we have the completed event. And in fact, because we're using a text field here, we don't actually have to worry about the completed and the error cases, because a text field will just emit next events. It will never emit a completed or an error event, because it can never go. It will always be able to receive new data as input data that it will emit in next events. So we can actually ignore these two cases, or we don't actually have to bother implementing them. However, we care about the next event where we are receiving some kind of optional string, and we just want to go ahead and print the string when we receive it. So let me run the application right now, and you will see that what is happening is that we are printing the values that I type into the name text field. We're going to print it to the console. So with every keystroke, we're printing the new value of the text field to the console.